Etruscan tombs are rather unique structures. First of all, they exist in the form of cities of the dead or necropolises. And they're often the only remaining elements of the culture, again, because the Romans, much like anyone else, are going to avoid building things on top of cemeteries, at least if we know about it. Now, the typical tomb is going to look something like this. It's a tulmus or mound, typically with the tombs actually dug into it, or apparently dug into it, sometimes into the side or built into it. Sometimes underneath there are rectangular tombs and other structures as well. But these tombs look a lot like their homes, which were oftentimes round, which makes sense. We tend to think of the dead as living in almost a parallel dimension to our own. Etruscan tombs cover one or more subterranean multi-chamber tombs. So the tulmus, the mound itself, would belong to an extended family. And then what you do is you go, here's you and your grandparents and all of that. Here's your cousins, here's your other cousins. So this is one extended family, and then each individual sort of more nuclear family would have its own burial area within it. Sometimes these are closely related families who are building a tulmus and then sharing it. And status is shown, just like anywhere else, by the size of the mound. Larger the mound, the wealthier the family who owns it. Oftentimes, smaller mounds will surround larger ones, and this is status by association. You want to be buried close to someone of importance. It gives your family a reputation even after you go. And this is cut from local stone known as tufa, which is a volcanic stone with a unique characteristic, which is that it hardens when it is exposed to air. So they can carve into it, it's fairly soft, and then given a little bit of time, it hardens up and creates a more permanent structure. Later, they run out of space, and these tombs will begin to move underground beneath the various mounds, creating these subterranean burials that we see all throughout these various necropoli. And they tend to be arranged, when you go into the tomb, they tend to be arranged in a fairly orderly fashion. Now, there are a couple of different kinds of burials. The most common is going to be cremation, and then the ashes will be left in an urn inside a sarcophagus, which is why these sarcophagi are so small in this case, because, of course, what we're looking at is something that's just meant to hold some ashes, and it's symbolic. They do also sometimes bury whole bodies. That's a whole different ball of wax, but we won't get into it too much here. The plan for the tomb, even the interior, tends to mimic that of a home. So we see benches, windows, and doorways. The benches, by the way, are at times, oftentimes, here we're sort of an exterior part of a tomb, will be there so that the relatives can come and sit and commune in the tomb with their dead relatives. It would not be unheard of, and we'll see the same thing amongst the Romans later on. So it was very common practice to actually visit with the dead. The Etruscans, of course, are close to their ancestors. It's no different than what we've seen elsewhere in the prehistoric, the ancient Near East, and elsewhere, where they're burying their dead nearby. They're doing the same thing here. The dead are nearby, and they're actually going to visit them. And you could imagine that, again, you're trying to call on those deceased ancestors to act on your behalf with the gods, to assist you in things that you may need, help you through a hard time, starvation, or other kinds of privation.